daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
When they passed on me, I said,
Who did they take? No, they traded out.
They traded out completely,
Showing up there.
Because in my opinion, let's speak facts. It's real.
Yeah.
They took a bargain, thinking I was going to be there first day of the second round.
Yeah.
But obviously, they didn't know someone wanted me also.
No question.
So that's where they didn't win.
And they traded just to go up and to get an extra.
But then again, they're not going to say that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Look at that. So that was kind of like a live, all things covered Patrick Peterson podcast with Lewis Seen at TCO Performance Center. It's pretty cool.
It's very cool.
Was that Judd running in the background there, streaking across the practice field?
Afternoon Judd here.
I was probably doing, you know what? Because Dex told me you got to have the phone close to your face now like this. So I was probably oblivious to
Afternoon Judd
all things covered.
Afternoon Judd.
Yeah.
Sponsored by my friends at Surly Brewing Company.
Lewis Seen's been a major disappointment so far. Hey, Lewis, what's up?
Amazing. So who is he talking about there?
Tampa.
Tampa.
Tampa passing on him.
Oh.
Is he? So he's got Tampa on a list of teams to go get in the playoffs.
He's got a long list if he's going to go get teams.
Yes. A listener
We'll have to use that today.
Yeah.
We'll use that today.
Love it. All right, this is Purple Daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. So if you ever think we're being a little too hard on the Vikings, a little too negative, Judd, whatever, it's all from a place of expecting greatness from a franchise that's done everything there is to do in 60 years except win a Super Bowl. And we've been counting down, starting yesterday, the top 20 current Vikings. And we'll get to that in just a second here. But thanks to our friends at Surly Brewing Company and also TCL, which is redefining creativity with the TCL 30V 5G smartphone. Enjoy blazing fast 5G speed and AI-powered 50-megapixel triple camera system, ultra-realistic and true-to-life visuals powered by Next Vision. Find out more at TCL.com. Did you get that 50-inch TCL hung in your place, Dex?
So a TCL 4 Series, little 50-inch TV, getting hung up next week on vacation. I called in some reinforcements to help me hang that TV. I'm not pulling a Macadac.
Professionals?
I am not a man who said, I texted my buddy who I golf with, who I know has 2 TVs hung in his house, and he even said, I hung 5 at my in-laws last week. So I said, okay, you're my guy. Because I looked into doing it. He said he hung 5 TVs at his in-laws.
Can I have one of them?
I don't know, and I'm guessing they're all, of course, TCL televisions. But but I didn't want to pay like the $150, $200 install that it costs. My building offers it. I think like Best Buy and there's other ones that offer it. So I said, how about you just come over and I'll like get your next round of beers on the golf course, and you can hang the TCL TV.
Round of beers? That's all you're going to get?
And get some other perks.
Okay.
Time with me.
That's the real perk.
Yeah.
Come hang out with Declan
That's
while watching a Twins game or something.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Okay, whatever.
Be great. So let's dive into this here. Top 20. Let's show yesterday. We counted from 20 down to 16, and we hashed this all out. Did you guys disagree much with the first 5 on this list here? Alexander Mattison 20th, DJ Wanham 19th, Chris Reed, league average offensive lineman 18th. KJ Osborne, 17, Patrick Peterson, 16, with 5 more to be unveiled here shortly.
I need to see how the rest of this falls a bit more because I don't disagree with what you have there. I'm curious what the next 5 are, because I think that would cause me to perhaps shuffle some, but I was fine with the start. Like Chris Reed surprised me a little bit, but it also speaks to depth as well. So I'd like to see your next 5 before I sort of debate who's 16 to 20, if that makes sense to you.
Okay. Are you guys ready to talk about Kirk Cousins here on today's list?
Oh, wow.
No?
I half expect you to put him 14.
We'll see. We'll see. Roll.
And you don't know with Macadac. There's vengeance here. There's an agenda.
No, there's pure truth and honesty is what it is.
Agenda.
So just some parameters here. This is positional value wasn't factored in as much. Like a left tackle and a quarterback are more valuable than a linebacker and a running back. But I was more going for just how good are you at what you do, and maybe even how good are you relative to the peers at your position group across the NFL when putting together this list. So let's go through 15 down to 11 here. Let's fire this thing up and start with 15.
You just made the list.
There we go. That's right.
All right.
There's Jericho guiding us through this thing. Number 15 on the 20 best current Vikings, Irv Smith Jr. This is where I feel like we might tussle here a little bit.
Okay.
All right.
I think if we were just ranking the idea of what Irv Smith could be based on eye test and based on, what he looked like at Alabama at times, just his potential, I think he would be higher than 15th on this list. But the reality is we're going into year 4. It'll have been 19 months since he last played an NFL game, come around week 1. He's never had more than 64 yards in a single game in the NFL. He's coming off knee rehab.
Yep.
He's never had like the big game. He's never had the 6 catches for 95 yards and a touchdown. Irv Smith is a theory, much like the best version of Kirk Cousins is a theory or team success with Kirk Cousins. So his last year at Alabama, Irv Smith, this is now 4 years ago, but he averaged 16 yards per catch at Alabama. Where is that guy in the NFL? And he's been hurt. I get it. Maybe the system and just the lack of opportunities with Kyle Rudolph around, maybe some of those things have held him back. What's holding him back this year? I guess we'll find out. But right now, the reality of Irv Smith is 15th. I think the best version of Irv Smith is probably one of the 5 to 10 best players on the Vikings, but we haven't seen that yet. So he's 15th.
And not close. So he could actually, I wouldn't have been surprised now in retrospect if you had put him behind Peterson as well. Because, I saw a guy in training camp last summer who was great in practices, right? So I'm like, oh man, and I talked about it, he's going to be great. And there were a lot of people who watched him practice as well who said the same thing. But until he actually can play in games and do those exact same things that I saw, he's 15, 16. The idea of that position being what Irv Smith can be could be hugely important. But this is very fair. He, again, is a guy who we have seen in practice. We have occasionally seen small spurts. But until we see him play a complete season healthy and be integrated into the passing game like I think he can be, he's 15, 16. That's it.
It's more it's the idea that he could probably move up more. But, the fact he missed all of last season, I'm curious on what 14 and above look like. But he, so far, of all the players you named, has the biggest potential to make the jump. Like, of all the players, if he hits a ceiling right, like if he goes for 800, 1,000 yards and catches 6 or 7 touchdowns and hauls in, 50 or 70 grabs, you're talking about a player who probably cracks your top 5, top 10.
Yeah,
so,
and you can make a case that between 16 and 20, so I can make a case that 4 of the players that I have between 16 and 20, Patrick Peterson, KJ Osborne, DJ Wanham, and Alexander Madison, have all had bigger individual seasons at their positions than Irv Smith has so far. So you could actually make a case that I'm still using the idea of Irv Smith and the potential to put him above KJ Osborne and to put him above Patrick Peterson. Patrick Peterson's a good, solid league average, good leader cornerback, right? Irv Smith's not an above average tight end yet, productivity wise. But we see him out there, and we see him when he comes over the middle in his athleticism and his speed, and we think, God, he runs like a wide receiver. He can cut. He could be a top 5 or 6 tight end in the NFL if given the opportunity. So I'm probably letting that leak into this ranking a little bit too.
Yeah, so drop him. Drop him lower.
You probably drop him below Peterson, maybe even below KJ Osborne. Okay.
Yes. I'd probably put him 16. But
and I guess I'm projecting Peterson kind of coming down the hill and Irv Smith going to get a boost here coming off of this injury, getting more playing time. This is the first time he'll have been really given free reign over that starting tight end job because Kyle Rudolph's gone. He was splitting snaps 50-50 with Kyle Rudolph for the first 2 years. So Irv Smith, number 15. Number 14, a new acquisition, a player that will play his first game, hopefully, as a Viking in September. Linebacker Jordan Hicks, coming over from the Arizona Cardinals and previously the Philadelphia Eagles. So rock solid linebacker. He's a tackling machine, including a playoff game last year. Jordan Hicks, over the last 3 seasons, has racked up 392 tackles. I think that's tops among linebackers in the NFL, we can have our crew of fact checkers check that. Pro Football Focus had him rated 27th out of 94 linebackers last year. He does turn 30 years old in less than 2 weeks. Just a rock-solid middle linebacker that I think is going to enjoy the system and enjoy the defensive front in front of him. It's really all there is to say about Hicks. He's a tackling machine.
Hard to debate this one. Like, I think it's probably fair. He is definitely going to make an impact if he can stay on the field, which I think his pass says he probably can. Kendricks, he probably helps him a bit. But yeah, I think Hicks is a good signing. I think he provides stability. I don't think he is necessarily a sexy player, but I do think that he will provide the type of stability that probably Peterson did, right? Like descending player. Peterson at his height was better than Hicks is, but I think you're looking for the same exact thing. A veteran who can step in, learn the system quickly, and can know what he's doing without a big period of trying to learn. So, yeah, I think this is fair. 14.
Yeah, it's a linebacker, and I think sometimes we forget how important linebackers are in today's NFL. And is he basically replacing the Anthony Barr role, or is he replacing Nick Vigil?
Well, the roles have changed completely, though.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly. And they're
it's a
different
new
players.
There's no role.
Yes.
Technically, like in the pecking order of Vikings linebackers, he's replacing Anthony Barr, but it's a totally new system. So, yeah.
Correct. So can he be, number one, better than Nick Vigil? And also, can you just know what his expectations are replacing Anthony Barr? Because Anthony Barr was always a theory, too. Anthony Barr was, what was he going to be, right? Like, he's a good coverage linebacker, but when he rushes the quarterback, he's good at it, but they didn't really utilize him a ton. I think Hicks, though, is more of, I think we know what we're getting out of him. I'm curious how he's deployed still a little bit, but I think we know who he is.
So I think for the most part, I think when we talk about replacing Barr, I think Hunter actually half replaces Barr because he's going to be technically in the 3-4, a linebacker, not a defensive end. But there are going to be times where he definitely has his hand in the dirt. So I think that this...
Sorry, I was late on the draw there. There you go.
Thank you. I think that this scheme is going to be so different that Hicks is just going to be relied upon to be solid. So if he can do his job, the one thing though that I am seeing and where I think they're going away from what we consider certainly to be traditional linebackers is this. When you guys see some of the backers that the Vikings trot out there, you are not going to be able to tell the difference between linebackers and safeties. Like this is
size-wise, yeah.
Size-wise, they look the exact same. There are safeties right now, I think, who look physically bigger than linebackers.
Yeah.
So like this entire thing is changing, but I do think that Hicks provides a stability that is going to be that hopefully for the Vikings' sake will be very helpful for the first portion, at least, of the season.
Yeah, I would say I'll reiterate my biggest worry about Hicks and a lot of players on the Vikings defensive side of the ball is the fact that he turns 30 years old in 2 weeks. You know, like basically half of the defense, maybe not half. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. You know, for sure, 4 defensive players are going to be on the wrong side of 30. That's probably it. I mean, Zadarius is what, 28, 29, but he's coming off injury.
Bad back,
though.
that scares you a little bit.
Yeah.
Nope, yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see. All right. I'm actually in an unprecedented move here in the history of the top 20 Vikings players, the history which dates back to yesterday. I am lumping 2 players in together at 12 and 13.
All right. So you're splitting. Okay.
Yep. So
I thought you were going to declare a tie for a second.
No,
but you're saying 12 and 13.
12 and 13, and I'm lumping them together because they will very much be lumped together in their jobs, handcuffed together.
Mannion
Harrison
and
Phillips,
Cousins.
Yeah, Mannion and
Kirk
Mond.
Cousins.
Harrison Phillips and Dalvin Tomlinson, the 600-plus pound beefy interior of this new Vikings defensive front. So as I see it, they're both very similar players. They're both very similar size-wise. They're both about 6'3", 310, 320 pounds. They're both in their football primes. Harrison Phillips is like 26 and a half. Tomlinson's 28. They can both get some pressure as pass rushers up the middle. Both are very good at clogging up running lanes. PFF has them graded right next to each other, 13th and 15th among interior defensive linemen last year. There's basically there's more than 3 tiers, but of the first 3 tiers of interior defensive linemen, tier number 1 is Aaron Donald. And then there's tier number 2, which is like probably 4 or 5 guys that are not Aaron Donald, but you can put them out there for a lot of snaps and they can get after quarterbacks and stuff. I think Dalvin Tomlinson and Harrison Phillips are part of that 3rd tier. They're among the 15 best interior defensive linemen, give or take, 15 to 20. They're both very reliable. And so I've got them handcuffed together here at 12 and 13. Interesting factoid about Harrison Phillips. He's a 3-time state champion wrestler at Millard West High School in Omaha. And he credits that sort of one-on-one wrestling combat background as being really helpful in his ascension as a guy in the trenches in the NFL. He worked his way up from 189 pounds as a freshman in high school, winning a state championship, to being 285 pounds. He gained 100 pounds in high school, up to 285 pounds to win the state title as a senior. And then he's put on another, 30 plus pounds or whatever since being in the NFL. So the interior defensive lineman, Harrison Phillips and Dalvin Tomlinson.
All right, this is an intriguing one, and here's why. This to me is one of the most important, and we've talked about it, but not extensively, one of the most important things that the Vikings did, because if you look at last season, and I think the last 2 years, but this certainly strikes me about 2021, the inability to stop the run was absolutely huge. Like, you have to stop the run. It's not really sexy, but if you can't, you're in trouble. And so I guess my question becomes, what's going to have changed within this scheme to stop the run? And then these two are going to play the most important role possible, right? So like Tomlinson and Phillips absolutely, positively have to be good. Now, my second part of the question is, in this scheme, can either one get a push? Because we see now, right? So many defensive tackles who create inside pressure, and that is as we've seen with Kirk, the quarterback's face immediately. So can one of these two, Tomlinson, can he get a occasional push? Because if you do, it disrupts things a lot. So this is actually, between these two, I think one of the most fundamentally important things is their success, because the interior of the Vikings defensive line for the last 2 years was disappointing, and you see the results when those guys aren't successful.
Yeah, these guys, just for the audience here too, they're not terrible at getting pressure, but it's certainly not what they're known for. In fact, they combined last season for 42 total pressures and a handful of sacks. So those guys combined had 42 pressures. Aaron Donald had 86.
Yeah, well, he just consistently gets pressure.
Jonathan Allen had 70. Kenny Clark with the Packers had 64. So these guys are going to be more about stopping the run than getting after quarterbacks. So it might be that you have to sub one off on third downs. I don't know. They're not guys also, like Aaron Donald plays 1,000 snaps. These guys are going to play half of that snap total. So who are you rotating in, and how are you getting that pressure in must-pass situations? It's a good question.
Occasionally, perhaps, let's say, Hunter lines up across from the center. Now we got problems, don't we? Now the quarterback's got problems. So it does get back to the creativity of the scheme. But just the fact that this team, I don't think there's anything more subtly frustrating than watching a team that can't stop the run. Like when it's 4 yards, 5 yards, 4 yards, 12 yards. It's like, what the hell? Because in this town, we have grown accustomed to seeing a lot of defenses that are successful against the run. So if you can now, you don't have to be great, but if you can just keep them to small gains and not these, big 12-yard gains at times, it's going to be a big step in the right direction.
Yeah, they're also spending $18 million in the interior of their defensive line per over the cap, which is 20th in the NFL. Now, they also are paying $5 million in dead money to both Michael Pierce and Sheldon Richardson, which is a little bit of a problem, but you'd like to think that after 2 years of being the worst run-stopping team in the NFL, essentially, that something can be improved there. If Harrison Phillips makes you go from 32nd to even 19th or 18th, that's a win. Because, like to Judd's point, it's death by 1,000 paper cuts when you're just allowing 4-yard, 5-yard, 6-yard, chunk yard gains all the time.
Yeah. And these guys aren't superstars. They're not, I mean, maybe the scheme elevates one of them differently than, the scheme that Tomlinson was playing in last year. But I think the theme here if you look at if we zoom back out to the rankings so far here, Harrison, Phillips, Dalvin, Tomlinson, 12, 13, Jordan Hicks, 14, and then Patrick Peterson was 16th. And I'll even include DJ Wanham at 19th. These are all just good, solid defensive players. I don't think there's any perennial Pro Bowlers in here. I don't think there's anyone that's going to, be in the Vikings Ring of Honor at any point. These are just good, solid players. And that brings us to number 11. He probably needs to be more than just a good, solid player. But last year brought out a bunch of different questions about his age and sustainability. Eric Kendricks is 11th on my list. Some people are going to say that's way too low because he is a Ring of Honor guy, I think, for this franchise. And he's been regarded recently as one of the best linebackers in the NFL. And if you want to look at Pro Football Focus rankings, they would tell you, too, that in 2019 and 2020, he was one of the best linebackers in the NFL. But last year, PFF marked him as not terrible, but more of like a league average linebacker that really struggled in the run game. How much of it was injury, scheme?
Yep.
Mike, he clearly had some issues with Mike Zimmer's coaching and communication at the end he's the one that coined the phrase culture of fear after Mike Zimmer was fired. And he's also 30 years old. So there's a lot of things that, last year just didn't quite feel the same, like the same Eric Kendricks. Now, I will say a couple things. There were 2 linebackers in the NFL last year with 100-plus tackles and 4 interceptions, Eric Kendricks and Jordan Hicks, and they're going to play next to each other on this defense in a new scheme. So does the pairing of those 2 guys in a new scheme with new coaches tack an extra year or 2 of productivity onto those those age 30 seasons? He's a leader. I'm ranking him. I think if you were just ranking based off last year, I don't know that I'd have him even 11th. But I'm giving him credit for what he did the 2 previous years and getting healthy, and we'll see what comes in 2022. So Kendricks is 11th.
I think that ranking is incredibly fair. He's coming off a bad year. There's no doubt about that. I think if the Vikings are going to make the playoffs, my sense is if you went back and did this list in the wintertime, he needs to be top 10. And here's why I think he's got a shot at that. The one thing, you brought up his picks, 4 picks last year. And the one thing that I love about what I think this scheme is going to do for him, this is assuming his health is fine and like he's not just breaking down, which is a possibility. It's a brutal sport. But if he was the victim of a scheme that didn't work well or disgruntlement, I don't know. If you watch Kendricks play this sport, he has the instincts of a safety. His picks are not picks of luck. Not like he just stood there and got the ball. He will go get the football. He will make plays that look like a defensive back. He has the ability to do that. And so I think with how the Vikings are going to deploy their linebackers consistently, which is going to be as pseudo safeties. And look, those guys are going to get pressure too. But the fact is, the day and age of the linebacker who was big and bulky and had the big neck brace and backboard and would just stop guys, that's going away. So as this game changes and morphs, I actually think that Kendricks, if his health is okay, has another year or 2 of being incredibly effective in sort of that linebacker safety hybrid role. And I love the fact that he has instincts that allow him to at times play like a defensive back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he's the second highest paid player on this Vikings team in terms of a cap number. I mean, he's making a lot of coin. He fell off the face of the earth a little bit last year, but when pre-2021, he was legitimately one of the best linebackers in all of football. Can he be changed? Can his scheme with Ed Donatel make him back into the player that he used to be? Because the Vikings need him. Like, him and Harrison are basically the de facto leaders on that defense, and they can't really afford for Eric Kendricks to post the same grade and be the same kind of player he was in 2021 if that defense is going to improve.
I think a lot of people just look at sort of the back of the football card statistics too and wonder, well, wait a second. He had a career high 143 tackles last year. He had 8 tackles for loss. He had 5 sacks career high, and he had two interceptions. By the way, I got that stat from Kevin O'Connell himself quoted that stat. Maybe he was talking about tackles and sacks as a linebacker, not interceptions, because Kendricks only had 2 interceptions last year. So if that stat was wrong, blame Kevin O'Connell for floating it in one of his press conferences.
Give me bad information. He's going to stink. He should be 20th.
A lot of people say, wait a second, he career high in tackles, 143, 8 tackles for loss, and then all these other things. And you see some of the splash plays he makes with the highlight reel picks. So tackles can be a little bit deceiving. Pro Football Focus would say, okay, you made a tackle, but were you in position to make that tackle? Did you make that tackle 5 yards further down the field than it should have been made because somebody was out of position, right?
Right.
Or were you out of position and somebody else got a tackle because they blew by you? So there's so many things that go into it. It's not as easy as just saying, look how many tackles he had. Well, where were the tackles? Were they 2 yards from the line of scrimmage or 8 yards from the line of scrimmage, right? Mm-hmm. So, again, this is where you have to take maybe the PFF grade with a little bit of a grain of salt. Do I think that he just became a bad player last year? I mean, he was graded as one of the worst run-stopping linebackers in the league. Do I believe that to be true? Not necessarily. I think there's still a semblance of the guy we saw 2019 and 20 in there somewhere. But
yes,
we'll see on the field.
And entirely, the run defense stunk. Like, the entire thing was bad. Mm-hmm. So every player pays for that grade. And the key here is, can you improve that, which you should. And I will say this, if Kendricks remains 11th on this list for the entirety of the season, Phil, this is not a playoff team.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think it needs to be top. I think he needs to be top 10. Yeah. I really do.
So we are halfway through the top 20 current Vikings countdown. Alexander Madison, number 20. DJ Wanham, 19. Chris Reed, 18. KJ Osborne, 17. Patrick Peterson, 16. Irv Smith Jr., 15. Jordan Hicks, 14. Harrison Phillips, Dalvin Tomlinson, handcuffed at 12 and 13. And Eric Kendricks, 11th on the list. Any just general, anything that just screams, no, dude, this is way off, or you would have done something totally different with one of these 10 players so far?
Not so far to me. No, I think it's fair. Like, I might move guys slightly, but there's nobody in your 20 to 16 who I think should be 12th. Like, Patrick Peterson maybe should be above Irv Smith Jr. right now, but I don't look at that and say Patrick Peterson should be like 10th. Mm-hmm. So no, I think it's, given the circumstances of what we know right now, it's fair. I'd be curious to come back and do this entire list in January, because I think it needs to change and probably almost certainly will change. But yeah, Irv Smith is the one that intrigues me because Dex is right. Like, that guy could skyrocket up this thing, or that could be it, and he could be 21st. That's the one where, I guess the two that intrigued me the most as far as, are they going to be top 10? Because they probably should be, if healthy, Kendricks and Smith.
Yeah, I think Irv Smith's ceiling still hasn't been reached yet. Like, all these guys. I think even if Kendricks makes an improvement, I mean, how much are you going to bump him up? Like, someone in the top 10 that you're going to have on your list would certainly have to fall off of it.
Yeah, I could maybe move Greg Joseph out of the top 10.
Yeah, exactly. You can move Garrett Bradbury, out of the top 5.
Jordan
or
Berry,
like, yeah,
heck of a leg.
Who's the long snapper? I have him 8th right now.
Snapper?
We'll talk more about him tomorrow.
He's a nice guy. Nice young man.
The Vikings are pretty much just kind of able to do what they want over the next 5 or 6 weeks until training camp. Just stay out of trouble. Oh, maybe they can make a tea time down at the Meadows at Mystic over the next 4 or 5 weeks.
Highly recommend it. You know who probably hits some bombs off the tee? Harrison Phillips.
Oh,
I bet Harrison Phillips absolutely just hits missiles off that tee box. I can see it totally. And he should hit me up. because I would like to take some lessons from Harrison Phillips and hit some bombs. At the Meadows at Mystic Lake, which is an award-winning 18-hole public golf course. It features a full-service golf shop, too. Top-of-the-line equipment and apparel. And he can do those lessons. I can probably do lessons with Harrison Phillips. He can show me how to put on like 250 pounds of muscle maybe and hit the ball like 300, 400 yards. Maybe he can show me that. But they can also have instructors down there that know what they're doing. Book your tee time, book your lesson at golfthemeadows.com to learn more. It's golfthemeadows.com. To learn more.
You are constantly politicking now to hang out with Vikings.
What do you mean constantly?
I think you did. I think you had one yesterday where you're like, yeah, I could hang with him.
Oh, that was Joe Ryan. I think we were talking
Joe
about
Ryan.
Because I think Joe Ryan and I probably share a lot of the similar lifestyle.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
I think I'm making an assumption.
My bad. Joe Ryan and you.
Making an assumption.
Joey!
I'd like to hear Judd try to convince one of these 300-pound offensive linemen, like, hey, listen, I got a friend at Livia that can help you lose. If you want to hang out with me, we can lose weight together. It'll be great.
It'd be simple. You know why? I would go up to guys about to retire, and I would say, yeah, you're a little chunky.
Dude,
and
do you
that's
see
not
Steve
good.
Hutchinson these days? That guy
weighs about 12 pounds.
Chiseled, man. No, but he's jacked. He looks
No, I
great.
know they're jacked, but they all lost the weight, right? Like they've all lost the weight. Like here's one. Garrett Bradbury. You know, he tried to put on, he has put on substantial weight because he is going to go out there and try and kick some ass. But when he's done playing, he's going to be like, I need to trim down. What am I going to do? I am far too heavy. This is not good for my body. What should I do? Judd, help me out. And I will say, Garrett, no problem at all. You call my friends at Livia Weight Control Centers, and you know what? If you did that now, ladies and gentlemen, $59. I'm down 40 pounds, and the best part is I'm keeping the weight off. That is the toughest thing to do. But for $59, you can get all the tools that you need to start a program that's going to help you shed the pounds and then keep them off, and it's this simple. You call 855-GO-LIVEA, Livia.com, LIVEA.com. Lose the weight, keep it off. And I'm going to tell you right now, if Judd can do it, so can you. So give them a call today or go to Livia.com.
Okay, what are people saying about the Vikings? Adam Rank, I believe we actually played a clip from him last week, giving the Vikings, he picked their schedule and gave them a 7-10 record. So a negative Adam Rank. We know where
I hate Adam
his
Rank.
allegiances lie. Must be with the Packers and the Bears. But he posted an article yesterday on NFL.com, State of the 2022 Vikings. I want to read you a paragraph about Kevin O'Connell and then a paragraph about Kirk Cousins and get your reaction. We'll start with the first one and get your reaction here. So Adam Rank says, Kevin O'Connell will now be getting his feet wet as a play caller while also learning how to be an NFL head coach for the first time in both cases. Vikings fans spent the last 4 years making fun of former Bears head coach Matt Nagy, who embarked on an ill-fated tenure in Chicago after serving as an offensive coordinator for Chiefs mastermind Andy Reid. But this sounds awfully familiar, doesn't it? It's awfully negative. The counter here would be that Bengals head coach Zach Taylor, another former assistant for McVay, has made a transition similar to the one O'Connell is attempting. However, it took Taylor some time to get it together. He won 6 games combined in the first 2 seasons. Of course, they were a complete disaster roster-wise.
Yes.
And then eventually reached the Super Bowl last year. And honestly, it took Joe Burrow to make it all come together.
Yeah.
Can Cousins do the same thing? Are these fair comparisons to be making for Kevin O'Connell?
No, this whole thing was stupid. Now, first of all, Matt Nagy is from the Andy Reid tree, okay? The Andy Reid tree, I'm not saying it's a bust, but so was Brad Childress. And both of them did not call plays, and I believe had the OC title because Andy Reid's very good at what he does, all right? So the Nagy thing, don't even mention those names. Like, don't even mention O'Connell. The McVay tree and the Reid tree are completely different. One is a grumpy old man who's very good at offensive football, but doesn't necessarily always pass it on, all right? So that's out. Number 2 is Zach Taylor. The smartest thing that the Bengals did was suck to get Joe Burrow. Like, the comparison that we're going to hear realistically is Stafford and Cousins. And I'm curious on that. I don't think that they are the same player. But the comparison there, far closer. Zach Taylor would be fired if they hadn't gotten Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow made the difference. It's why you want that quarterback. Like, it's no secret, right? So no, I struggle with that entire thing. I think that's ridiculous. I think
I
it's
feel like you're being a little hard on the Andy Reid coaching tree here. I agree, by the way. You can't just say, well, Matt Nagy, so, because you could do that. You could do it on both sides of the coin,
But
right? You could.
yes,
Yeah,
but what I'm
okay, is there a chance O'Connell is a flop as a head coach?
yes.
Yes. Okay.
But why are you cherry picking Nagy to compare and say Vikings fans made? I mean, Nagy was a complete bust. He was a bust. He had one good year, first year very good, and then bang, done. I don't like his comparisons. The author has rubbed me the wrong way this morning.
I think it is weird to pull Matt Nagy because you could also pull. I'm looking at a list of the 11 Andy Reid assistants that have become head coaches in the NFL. John Harbaugh. He was a special teams coordinator. He never called offensive or defensive plays in a game. But he got the job because he was a great leader and communicator. And still, you see John Harbaugh as just one of the most beloved coaches, able to coach hard, but he asks the opinions of players in key moments and stuff, right?
Right.
Ron Rivera went to a Super Bowl with the Carolina Panthers. Very good NFL head coach. Doug Peterson is a Super Bowl winning head coach. He was an Andy Reid assistant.
That's the
Sean McDermott with the Bills is an Andy Reid assistant.
Right, but we're talking about guys in the case of McDermott, Rivera. We're talking about guys from the defensive side. I'm talking about the offensive comparisons.
Well, let's talk about
he's
leaders.
Cherry picking. But my problem is he's cherry picking a guy who was a colossal flop and saying, well, offensively he was supposed to be good. That's what I don't like.
I mean, Doug Peterson was a backup quarterback in the NFL who wasn't really fit to be a starter, and then I don't know. You could compare O'Connell to Doug Peterson just as easily as you. Now, did Doug Peterson call plays under Andy Reid? I doubt it, right? Andy Reid's been calling plays.
I think he was given a little bit of latitude, but yeah, he did not call plays.
It's less about calling plays, more about how great of a leader and a communicator you are.
Yep.
People get so fixated on that.
But that's why I don't like that. But to me, the Zach Taylor one is BS because the quarterback's great. Like if you give Zach Taylor Kirk Cousins, Phil, how are the Bengals doing right now?
They're not in the Super Bowl last year.
Okay.
No.
He's not overcoming the offensive line and all the things. Burrow is a better quarterback, and Burrow is a more galvanizing leader as a quarterback than Kirk Cousins.
Great.
Okay, here's the next part. This is more specific to Cousins. Cousins is the Michelob Ultra of NFL quarterbacks.
Oh, my God.
Not the worst choice you can make, but if I have other options, it's probably not going to get within my top 10. Before I continue, what other options might you have besides Michelob Ultra if you're looking for a good top 10 beer?
Well, you know what you would want? Joe Burrow, right? Brady, right? Rodgers, right? Well, listen, right now, I'm going to tell you, I've got all of those quarterbacks in a beer can, and that is anything that comes from our friends at Surly Brewing. Of course, my top choice, Furious, is fantastic, but there are so many good summer choices, and these are all the upper echelon, first round, high top 10 picks provided by Surly Brewing. So stay away from the Cousins' beer and indulge in the beer that is going to be the Super Bowl of taste. That would be Surly.
Also, a shout out real quick to our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company. Federated is the Tom Brady, the long-standing gold standard of insurance companies to help your business. Been around for over 100 years, just like Tom Brady. And they measure their success by the success of your business. At Federated Mutual Insurance Company and federatedinsurance.com, it's our business to protect yours. All right, so Cousins is the Michelob Ultra of NFL quarterbacks. Not the worst choice you can make, but if I have other options, it's probably not going to get within my top 10. Cousins is 59, 59, and 2 in his time as a starter in the NFL, which feels incredibly on brand for him. But he's posted a passer rating of 90 or better and at least 25 passing touchdowns in each of the past 7 seasons. 5 other quarterbacks in history have posted such a streak lasting 5 years or longer. All 5 won a Super Bowl during their careers, according to NFL research. Now, of course, it's easier to put up those numbers now than it would have been 10 years ago, 15 years ago, et cetera. Like Steve Young doing it, if he did, and Joe Montana doing it is different than the guys doing it now. I digress. The hope here is O'Connell has the same impact on Cousins that Sean McVay had on Stafford in Los Angeles. And again, they are similar with each other. O'Connell accepted the job already knowing Cousins' strengths. That should be taken as a positive.
Adam Rank, too, has been loving this take because in December of 2018, I just looked this up, he literally tweeted out, if you asked Kirk Cousins to bring the beer for your party, he'd show up with a sixer of Mick Ultra for everyone.
Wow, so he's consistent. Adam
He's
Rank
consistent
is
with this take. I like this. I respect it.
Testing the take on Twitter, bring it to the website.
That's
maybe
Royce-y
throw it
like.
out on NFL
It is, and it's
Network.
like it's a little fancy bottle, but it doesn't have a lot of taste. Doesn't really fill you up. There's better options out there,
But you can do it.
but you can do it. Yeah. That's
Now,
it.
would you overpay for it? That's the thing. Would you?
If you're thirsty enough, you might.
If it was one of the 3 most
Well,
expensive
typically-
beers, would you be
I
comfortable
can't confirm
with?
or deny this, but when I go on the golf course, and usually when I get a sixer of beer, the 6th beer is usually free, right? You buy 5, they give you a 6 for free. That's usually a normal course deal at a lot of golf courses. And typically, when I haven't been purchasing beer, because I purchase Surly's, but my other friends, they'll grab the Mick Ultras. They go to the Old Reliable. They go to their Kirk Cousins.
It's a great comparison.
It's pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty
That
good.
part was entirely fair, by the way. It was.
So yeah, good for all of you Mick Ultra drinkers. Surly is the beer of choice on Purple Daily here. And that's what people are saying about the Minnesota Vikings here on this Tuesday, June 14th. Daily Vikings discussion even during the offseason, and we will unveil tomorrow. In addition to Write That Down predictions, we'll also do maybe a separate episode just to give the 20 current best Vikings list the space that it deserves to breathe.
We will through Friday.
Maybe we do what Chris Sims did, which is just like pause the
Put
list
it on
for 2
hold
weeks.
for Write That Down.
You got
and then come back Thursday.
You got a new
with it.
producer the rest of the week. So you guys.
He's not new. He's an old, reliable producer.
Yeah, he's not the Michelob Ultra. I can tell you that.
He's coming off the bench, and he's really good. And you never know when starting roles are going to change, Dex.
It's true.
Guy goes on vacation.
6 through 10 at some
Wally
point,
Pep.
either tomorrow or next week. I don't know. We'll have to just see when we want to unveil more names here. Mackie and Judd here on Purple Daily with executive producer Declan. We'll see you guys.